Okay, so first up that I want to show you guys is the most common fingering, which is the front key. This one is unstable, so most people that you hear using it will almost always have to scoop into it, either from a front F or like a front F with the high F sharp key type of scoop into that. But the first fingering that I want to show you is just the front key by itself. Alright, so the second fingering is just like the front key, but you add the high F sharp key, and this adds some stability to what is generally a very unstable note. Already that's a lot easier to hit. So I talked about this before, but with the front key, if you just look at your palm F key and where that opens, if you just have that open just barely, that note becomes more stable, but you also sacrifice intonation of obviously your F or your front F or your front E or any other fingering that uses that key. So the other one I want to show you is my favorite. It's almost exactly like the front key with the high F sharp key, but instead of having the front key, you have the B natural key, or what I call 1 with high F sharp key. Super easy to hit. In fact, that is the easiest one, and the hardest one is B natural without the high F sharp key. This is super difficult to hit on its own, and I use it, I practice it, but that's just B natural with by itself. You can hear how it's more difficult. So that's 4 of them. I probably shouldn't have to say this, but you should definitely have the octave key down for all of this, but let's move on. So the other one is just like middle F, but you add your side C. You can hear that note runs sharp, but you can get a really cool multiphonic with that note. If you just lift the 4 key, you can go from Altissimo G to Altissimo A flat very easily. So I've actually just written a song, and I need to figure out how to work that in, because out of all the fingerings that I have, that one is by far the easiest with the phrase that I've written. So let me hit this multiphonic with you using that fingering. Okay, moving on, we have 1, 2, 3, and 6. So I like to call this a flute F sharp fingering. Now with flute, you also have the E flat key down, but as far as saxophone goes, don't worry about having that E flat key down for your 1, 2, 3, and 6, or what I like to call flute F sharp. You can get a nice kind of whole step-ish Altissimo or a whole step multiphonic in there with that note. We're using that fingering. All right, so another one that's a little more difficult to use is 1, 2, 4, and 5. So it's like you're fingering your middle E, but then you lift the 3 finger, and then you add your side C. 1, 2, 4, 5 with side C. Now I talked about this in one of my other videos. Using 1, 2, 4, and 5 is an alternate fingering for your palm F. There you go. That makes it very simple to be able to go back between front F and Altissimo G. I also showed you the fingering that's exactly like G sharp, going to B natural, but if you hold your high F sharp key, then you can go back and forth between palm F and Altissimo G. Very easy. So let's move on to another one, which is very similar. 1, 2, 3, and 6, but this time we add our high F sharp key and the low C key. You can hear how there's another multiphonic that wants to creep in with that one. That fingering also produces a bigger G, than what we did with just the flute F sharp fingering. Okay, so let's move on to some fingerings that produce some really cool multiphonics. And this one is split F in my terminology. Split means the two finger is up with whatever fingering. So we have 1, 3, and 4. And then we have our side F sharp, not the high F sharp this time, low C and low B flat. You can hear that multiphonic in there, and you can dial it out if you want to. So moving on, we have this one is a bit strange. We have our 1, 3, and 6, and we have our high F sharp key with low C. And you can add the low C sharp if you want to, but you don't really need to have this key down in order to hit this note. Let's hear what that sounds like. Alright, so you get a really cool multiphonic with that one. Let's do some more. Alright, so this is a old fingering that I found. You may have run across this fingering at some point. I don't particularly like to use it, but on my horn it's just not as easy to use as the other ones. But maybe on your horn it works out a lot better. So this is like middle C, and then you have 4 and 5. And you can hear that one is crazy sharp, right? Almost an A flat. Yeah, it's like kind of somewhere in between, but maybe on your horn that note is a lot better in tune. So here's another old one, which is 1, 0, which is palm D, and then you have 4 and 5. That one is much more stable and much more reliable than the 2 with 4 and 5. I want to talk about 2 other ones. Now, if you've been practicing your overtone series, you can play the notes that are in the overtone series of lower fingerings. So if we're playing our low C, we can just finger low C and then play the 6th overtone, which is that Altissimo G. And this is difficult to the point where it's just kind of useless. I never ever use this fingering in order to play this note. Let's see if I can hit this for you. Yeah, it's like crazy sharp and virtually useless. So I said that those extra 2 would be pretty useless. And using that same logic, we can think about overblowing just G, because technically speaking, it's supposed to play those overtones. I'm doing a science video. It's actually in the editing process right now, and I go into a lot more detail about how a saxophone plays overtones and why this is an awful fingering to play Altissimo G. But let's see if I can hit it using that fingering. Yeah, it wants to push sharp, but there you go. So basically, if you study your overtone series, anytime that Altissimo G is in the overtone series, you can essentially make a fingering out of it. So thanks for tuning in, ladies and gentlemen, and I hope that this increases your knowledge of how to play Altissimo G on tenor saxophone. Feel free to subscribe if you like my videos, and thanks for tuning in.